in a corporate environment, you're not necessarily going to find just your championship team immediately around you, especially when you're such a large global organization. Look beyond that, the team that you're assigned to work with.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here.
Y'all, I really enjoyed my conversation with our next guest, and I can't wait for you to hear the gems that she drops for you. You know those women who are super smart and calm, super cool and collected? Yeah, that's Samia Mahjub, Vice President of Business Strategy and Analytics for the Milwaukee Brewers. We spent time talking about all the things, like why she made the decision to go to business school, her super impressive career at Adidas. I asked her to give us the secret sauce on how she did it. She said she was going to charge me, but she didn't. How she approaches leadership. I have to say, obviously I'm not looking for a job, but if I was, I would totally 100% want to work for her. Samia talks about approaching networking, even if you're an introvert, how to approach finding balance, and she's also super candid and tells us why she didn't feel any fear as she stepped into her role as a first-time executive. All right, friends, you ready? Let's do this. Samia, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today.
Yes. Okay, take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
I have to say it's way back before I even can remember. It's seeing pictures of myself as this tiny little human holding either a basketball or a soccer ball. I was just a little rugrat from the beginning. Youngest of 3 kids, 2 older brothers who I just followed into every single sport possible that we'd play with the neighborhood kids. Growing up outside of Chicago, I think basketball ended up being my main sport. Obviously, was blessed to be in a great sports city. So yeah, from then on, I had to be around sports like all of my life from the time I could stand up on my feet.
It sounds like your brothers probably, I don't know them, but I imagine that they didn't give you a choice.
Well, you'd be surprised. There was a little bit of no girls allowed here and there. So sometimes not their choice, but yeah, I think they were pretty good sports about it.
What sports did you play?
So basketball was my main number one. And then I'd say at school, I ended up getting into soccer, tennis, played on teams for both of those sports. And then other than that, recreationally ended up playing softball, kickball, you name it, volleyball. I love any sport. I love the competitiveness. I love the fun of it, the teamwork of it. But yeah, through high school, played soccer and tennis as well. And then in college, just focused on basketball.
And you coached at Emerson College, correct?
Correct. I did. I coached some years at Emerson College and then also assisted at MIT as well.
Wow. Yeah, I think we just missed each other. So I coached soccer at Emerson. But I think just 2 years. Yeah, just 2 years before you.
That's awesome. Well, I'm bummed we missed each other then, but I'm glad we're connecting now.
I know, right? I love it. Okay, so tell us, when did you have this realization, or was there one that you wanted to work in sports?
I think there was definitely a realization, and it didn't really happen as early as you'd think, based on what I just said about sort of my passion for sports from a very young age. I would say it's not until I actually got out into the workforce I studied electrical engineering, computer engineering at MIT as an undergrad. And when I got out into the workforce, I worked as an account manager, but in a tech company. And I realized, I love sort of the business aspect of it, but I really wasn't into the industry. And I realized, what I really would be into is sports. That was the time that I was assistant coaching at Emerson College and, was actually considering a complete change and going into coaching. Instead, I ended up going back to business school to get my MBA and using that as a redirect into a more of a sporting goods or sports industry.
Okay. So you were out, you're an account manager, and then you decided the best route forward was to go back to school. Is that right?
Yeah. And that was only after giving it a shot, trying to apply to jobs outside of sort of the tech realm, right? So you have this engineering degree on your resume, and a lot of the feedback I got was, you have a very technical background. Tell us, it was often I had to really explain myself to be applying for jobs outside of tech. That's when I realized the power of the actions and the things you can tangibly put on your resume to show and signal that you are interested in a certain area. So for me, sports, right? So that was when I realized, okay, going back, getting my MBA, focusing on sports, any opportunity I had to get involved in, consulting projects, student groups that focused on sports and entertainment, and even taking, whatever opportunities, volunteering within sports. And as you kind of tally those things up and show those things on your resume, it's an easier story to tell. And that's what I found when I started applying again after that.
Okay, this is interesting. So I find now more than ever, right, because of the pandemic, that a lot of women are like, I want to go back and get my MBA, but they're not sure if it's the best decision for them, right? Because it's a personal decision, right? It's hard to generalize. But could you give women like even one nugget piece of advice after going through what you went through?
Yes, I would say, I would definitely recommend really giving it some thought and knowing what direction you want to go in before jumping into the MBA. It's super important to kind of have an idea of the direction, because there's so many tools available to you in a program like that. I chose to go full-time. I know there's always the option to go part-time and continue working. But, in the full-time program, I really knew that I wanted to completely change direction of industry, and to get that momentum in a new direction. I think that's the perfect way to do it. You're then surrounded by other students who have experiences in all sorts of different industries, all sorts of resources. So I'd say definitely know where you want to go before you jump into any graduate school program, I'd say. And I'd say it's probably one of the best decisions I've made.
If you have sports experience, but you can't find a job right now, so you're just going back to business school just to get that extra level of education, right? I think your situation is different, right? Because you actually needed that like experience, but not having sports experience, does it make sense to go get your master's, right? Like just to have that degree? Do you think that's going to give you the upper edge? I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. It's escaping me, but like when it comes to putting your resume out there with all the millions of other resumes.
Yeah. This was, for me, it was back in my MBA program. It was 2007 to 2009. So I know things have definitely changed a lot since then. I would say it's worth doing the research also for any potential jobs that you're looking at, right? So what's a potential dream job that you want in 3 to 5 years? Look at some examples out there, talk to people in those areas, and find out if an MBA gives you a leg up. Because I think times have changed a bit in terms of the value of various educational programs that you can access. There may be more alternatives, but that's something that I would say definitely doing more research on.
Okay, tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
Sure. Oh, this is I get so excited to even say it. It's still fresh. So I am now the VP of Business Strategy and Analytics for the Milwaukee Brewers Baseball Club. It's my first time in the world of baseball, Major League Baseball. I joined last year, so February 2020, and I have just been absorbing, learning, educating myself in this new world. And trying to enjoy it despite the challenges that the world has faced over the last year.
What challenges are those?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm just making it up.
Some people might agree with you. Okay, wait. So tell us, what was it like? Was this your first executive role?
Yeah. So this is my first time at the VP level. I have kind of have been climbing the ladder for the past 10 plus years within the sporting goods industry. So tying back to sort of getting my MBA to launch myself into the sports world, I did that by starting with a job at Reebok. It's a tough world to get into. And I know you know this, and as do most people in the sports world know, it's tough to break into. Even though I had a few years of good professional experience at that time, it was almost a bit of a reset. So knowing that, taking it for what it was, started at Reebok and then built sort of a path, which ended up being really about business strategy. So spent 5 years at Reebok. They then moved me to the Adidas headquarters in North America, which is located in Portland, Oregon, and then just continued on this kind of business strategy path. Worked various sports categories there. In my last role, I was heading the global strategy for the global basketball business unit, as well as the U.S. sports unit.
You had quite the trajectory. I was looking at all the stuff you were doing for Adidas, and over the course of 7.5 years, you were constantly, I would say at least at a minimum, like once a year being promoted. How'd you do it? Give us the secret sauce.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to cost you. So no, I'm kidding. I actually love talking about it, and lately have talked to actually several students who are looking for advice on how to get into the industry and how to go from there. I think for myself, I would probably bucket it into a few different things. One, I would say I've always looked for ways to go above and beyond in every new role that I jump into. So constantly looking for ways to add on to just the usual roles and responsibilities that are assigned. Two, never underestimate the power of internal networking, or I'll call it like informal networking. So, usually in a role, you get to know who you work with, and then you get assignments, and then, you kind of form your little world. But I found there's a lot of power in going outside of that. And it particularly works well in a larger company like Adidas and Reebok. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing, I think, is making sure that you have a balance of you work hard, but then you also got to have fun. And I will say one of the perks of working in sports is that you usually do find some fun.
Yes, you definitely find some fun. Depending on where you are in your career and your personal life, it can be difficult to balance. Let's work backwards. What advice would you give women about finding that balance? Because what I see some people struggling with, and I don't want to generalize here, but is setting up those boundaries and not feeling comfortable with doing so, feeling like you have to be on all the time and you can't say no or not yet to a manager when they request something. So any advice you would give on trying to find that balance?
It is tough. Personally, I try to reserve, at least early on in a new role, I try to make sure I give proper time to learning truly what this role entails, and make sure that, a manager or anyone else that you'd work with understands that you do need that time to be in that sort of learning phase. Because during that time, that's when you individually figure out what those boundaries need to be for your own personal situation, figure out how do you manage the expected and the unexpected. So, typically I've had through several managers, if you're lucky, you get managers who tell you, okay, yeah, like the first year is about you learning. And so there's a little bit less pressure there. But I also know that I know myself, I'm always trying to overachieve, and I'm always, I always want to get going. Let's go, let's do things. Let's make progress. So usually try to make it less than a year. But yeah, I mean, taking the time to really understand that and understand what it means for yourself, and then just being honest about it, being very forward. I think people appreciate when you're not throwing surprises, like all of a sudden you can't you can't fulfill certain things, certain aspects of a role, right? So just really making the time to understand it, and then being honest about how you need to set up your life to really be successful in that role.
How does somebody, like, what would someone say? Like, how do you even approach that conversation? So someone who's listening, who's like, yes, exactly what you're saying. And then they're done with the podcast. They're like, oh, wait, now what do I do? Like, how do I have this conversation with my boss?
There's no easy way to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I think you kind of have to feel out, the culture of the company, the culture of your team. And ideally, you get that sense before you take a job. Ideally, you use the interview process to gauge, okay, is this a place where I can be my full self and be able to set boundaries that I need to set, and be able to have conversations when I need to, no matter how difficult. So that's one thing, but I know that most situations are not ideal and set up that way. You have to be confident. I think when you have those conversations, you have to recognize that you are a great asset to that team, to that company, and that whatever you need to be successful should never be an issue.
I love that. And I love the fact that you just said it's a difficult conversation. It's not gonna be easy. So let's all just get comfortable with being uncomfortable and have the conversation. It's better than you burning out or leaving because you're just so unhappy, but you haven't tried anything. Just do it. And I swear it gets easier. Those who are listening and you're having those difficult conversations, you do it once and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I can do that again. And like you get stronger and stronger with those difficult conversations.
Absolutely. Back to you bringing up, my team. I try to build that culture even in my smaller team, especially with the difficulties of this past year, like just being able to perform in our jobs while so much is happening in the world. That's tough to digest, and, try to make an environment where, listen, you guys are working really hard. You guys are doing great things. Just also want to make that space to be open to if you need to adjust in any way, or if there's anything that we need to do to make things easier for you guys to be working successfully, then let's have that conversation. So myself as a leader, I like to offer that up. So people don't necessarily need to feel like it's a big deal that they're coming to me with something. So I've already proactively been opening up that discussion.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram at jahaanblake. And let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here.
What was it like starting a job in February of 2020 as an executive with a team? And I'm imagining you guys were remote right then.
No, not yet, actually. So.
Oh, right. It's a little bit early. That's right. That's right. I'm about a month too early. Okay. So tell us what it was like.
Yeah, I got a taste of how amazingly perfect everything was. I was super excited. We had, basically the runway leading up to opening day was nothing but, obviously for me, I was learning what's happening. It's a very busy time leading up to opening day, just getting excited for it. And, I was actually down in Arizona for spring training when everything shut down. So I hadn't even gotten to see one inning pitched when everything kind of changed. I realized this was going to be a very different first year in baseball. I just basically pivoted into this isn't something that anybody knows how to handle. So I just prioritized, I just need to be a good leader. I need to, understand how to lead a team and how to be a teammate in this role in a time where everything's unknown, everything's uncertain. Mm-hmm. And so it took a lot of strength, but thankfully I think that all that momentum and positive energy and excitement I had was really what kind of helped me stay positive and still be able to make progress this past year.
Yeah. Ooh, that is a tough time to move And then you get to Milwaukee, and then you're at spring training, so you're not even home, and you have to come back in the middle of a pandemic. And I'm sure there's some fear just personally, like what's happening big? Or I know for me in March of 2020, I was like, okay, we just need to get food for 2 weeks. And then just, called my dad and said, make sure you get all your medicine and everything so you don't have to go outside for 2 weeks.
Wishful thinking.
And then we'll be fine, right?
Yeah, you and me both.
All right. So going back to and you have to deal with me, my brain bounces around. Going back to your time at Adidas and your trajectory and the success you had there. So you said something that I thought was really interesting and strong, which is the power of going outside of your network. Will you talk a little bit about that and what like network means to you?
I'm actually going to use an example that I used in a talk that I did while I was at Adidas, actually, about that power of a network. And it's specifically an informal network. I played in a summer basketball league and a winter basketball league with the same group of women, very diverse group of women. And how this team came together, I don't know. It's like everybody was from a very different place. I think what brought us together was, yes, either having college coaching experience or just having been a college player or just being a friend of, right? So we had probably the biggest range of ages on this team, most diverse in terms of careers. And then we play in this league, which a lot of the teams in this league were, fairly young, whether they were college players staying in shape for the summer. We won championships like pretty frequently. And I would have never thought this group of just like random women who just, loved basketball, and they were had kids or families or not, single, whatever it is, just people from all over. And we found a way to connect on the court. We played really well together. So that I want to use as an analogy that in a corporate environment, you're not necessarily going to find just your championship team immediately around you, especially when you're such a large global organization such as Adidas. So I found this out very early in my, when I first started out at Reebok too, is look beyond that, the team that you're assigned to work with. And it's pretty easy. Just, it was pretty chill environment, good culture where you could just email somebody and be like, hey, would love to get a coffee chat and learn a little bit more about what you do. Think there might be an opportunity to work together. So I did that quite a few times, and it led to whether it was a successful project that would not have existed had I not reached out to certain people, or I've just been able to move things along more quickly and be more efficient by learning from somebody else outside of my immediate group, or just getting some brainstorming, whatever it is. I think that was a huge, huge learning for me. And I still try to do that.
Yes, I love doing that. I will talk to anybody. I don't know that everyone's always like ready to talk to me in the sense that like they're busy, right? Like sometimes they can't, and I get it. But like anytime a new person would join a club that I was working at, I was immediately like, let's go grab coffee. Don't know if we're going to be able to work together on anything, totally different department, but wanted to meet everybody, get to know them, and see how we could collaborate in the future. What advice would you give women? I have some people in my head, and if they're listening, they know who they are, who are introverted, which I am, who are introverted and afraid like that they're bothering the person. That's what I get all the time. Oh, why don't you meet with so-and-so? I feel like I'm bothering them. So I'd love to get your advice, just a different perspective on what they should do.
Well, I will also tell you that I as well am an introvert and have found ways to be extroverted in my professional life. I completely understand that people may have that initial thought. Most of the time, that is absolutely not the case. I shouldn't say nobody, but most people absolutely are willing to take the time to chat with you. And especially when, either you have some ways to maybe make it a more of a softer intro, right? Is if you're able to have somebody you do know pretty well introduce you. So finding ways to be introduced to somebody so it's not completely a cold call or a cold request. However, in a business environment, I think people are expecting that. People are going to request time with them, but I would say, more things you can do to feel more comfortable about that is, be certain about what you're trying to get out of it. When you do reach out, be kind of short and sweet with your message, and then be flexible. Offer up, hey, if you have availability in the next few weeks, couple of weeks. I think giving that flexibility, but also showing that you're showing like what your intention is, and it's never going to be an issue that, people are going to say, well, no, I absolutely have no time for you. I mean, I've never run into that. The worst case scenario is like, well, people might be traveling to in a normal world.
Right.
So, you just might have to wait a bit longer to get the time. But I'd say try to switch that brain signal to say, this person is going to want to meet with me too. And I'm going to use that person's time wisely.
Yeah, I agree. Because 8% of the time, people would say yes to me. And then what I did wrong, and I guess everything is a lesson learned, but what I did wrong is when someone did say no, I took it so personal. And now I know, right, hindsight's 2020. Now looking back, I know why they said no to me, right? I understand the internal politics a lot better. I understand why they wanted nothing to do with me. And you know what? Them saying no to me had literally nothing to do with me and my ability. So you can't make up a story in your head. And most people people who you want to work with and collaborate with will want to spend some time with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think just having that mindset, and you never know if you don't try.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, going above and beyond, I just feel like high achieving women who are listening to this and men who are listening to this feel like, okay, I want to go above and beyond. I also want to get paid when I'm going above and beyond. How do you balance that? Right? Because I know sometimes you have to go out and show them what you're doing and show what you are capable of doing. But at the same time, you don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yes, that's a very good point that you bring up. And in my experience, it has meant something different at every stage of my career. So, probably early on in our conversation, when I said that, the thing that was front of mind was, early on in my first start in the industry at Reebok, and knowing that I was starting at a level that was below my education and below my experience level, but knowing that, okay, I just, I'm going to go above and beyond so that I can send myself into a trajectory. But, going above and beyond and making sure that you're a manager and, those that you work with know that are two equally important things, right? So it's not just going above and beyond and, not letting anybody know or kind of expecting that it's noticed, right? You also have to be your own greatest advocate. You need to be your own loudspeaker. And, I'm not saying like loudspeaker in a literal sense, but as you're kind of doing additional things, make sure that you involve other people and make sure that it's bringing more of the people around you along with you. And then it gets noticed. And then, as I kind of got more and more senior in my career, that meant being probably more well-rounded than my role was. So not only, if I take it like more, an example would be at like a senior manager level, and granted, that may mean something different for people in different companies, but just call it, somewhere kind of in the middle management area. And I realized, you could just do the job and do it well. But at that point, I knew that I wanted to continue to climb and I wanted to be more of a leader than a manager, right? That's a whole discussion we could have, the difference between the two. Knowing that I wanted to grow into more of a leader, then I not only did kind of my management role, but I also then tried to take opportunities to show up more and be more of an example as a leader, even though I didn't have the title to match up to that.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And talk a little bit more about what you said, leader versus manager.
So a wise senior VP that I reported to just before leaving Adidas, he and I had a great conversation about this. A manager really is just making sure the things get done, right? So you've got people that report to you, you've got tasks that need to be done. So it's a bit, I think of it more as project management. And then I'd say a leader gets that done. That's kind of basic expectation. But on top of that, the leader is growing the people around them and growing the people who are more junior to them by providing that sort of intangible, more qualitative, soft skill, people skill, and kind of thinking bigger picture, not just that one little team or that one, I'll draw a reference to strategy, right? You can have a corporate strategy. You can be in charge of one pillar, but you can manage one pillar. But if you're a leader, you're truly an advocate for that greater strategy as well. And you're taking the opportunity to pitch in other places.
Yes, I love that. And I often tell the story of my mother, who she's retired now, but she, when I was younger, I thought my mom was so cool because like she would go into like black cars would pick her up, and we're talking like in the 80s, and she would fly places, and her job was to teach executives how to be leaders. But I never understood. I was like, I don't get it. I was like, when you're an executive, like you are a leader, right? Like, shouldn't you already be a leader? And she's explained it to me. And obviously I was younger then. I didn't quite understand, but I knew what my mom did. And it wasn't until I started working that I said, oh, so I would call her and be like, they need you here. It's like, there's a few, executives that I think that you should really work with.
Yeah, you can definitely feel it as a more junior person, for sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm grateful that I knew the difference, right? And I knew that this wasn't right. Now I see why my mother has her job, and I see that I shouldn't, because you get into these organizations and you want to, if you have a goal of saying being executive in sports, which was mine, you see what the executives are doing. And so you tend to copy that because you think that's what you need to do to get there. And so I am grateful for having my mother knowing that, no, you don't need to do that. That's not a good example of an executive or a leader as well.
That's another thing I kind of tried to do along the way is, again, based on, I gotta throw in there, I had some really great mentors along the way. And one of them had said, as you continue to work towards higher levels, take note of the things that you like that a manager has done or a leader of yours has done, and the things that you don't like that they've done, and then curate your own kind of leadership philosophies around that as you build more and more.
Yes, that is great. And then you end up like creating your own like playbook along the way.
Exactly.
Love that. Was it difficult to leave Adidas?
I definitely had mixed feelings of whenever you stay within a company for that long, 10 years total between Reebok, Adidas. I think you build these relationships that, I ended up leaving behind some really great friends geographically, but we're still very much in touch. So I think that that's the only part that kind of like hit me a little bit in the heartstrings, not having my work besties physically in the same office as me. But I think I knew that I was ready for the next big opportunity, the next challenge. I need that. I need to continue to feel challenged in my work. So I was very, very excited, on the professional side, very excited to take on something new. And biggest driver for me is the closer I get to the sport, the better. So this is a step, from making the stuff that the athletes wear, and working on that business to now being actually on the same team with the athletes. That's, that was a huge win for me.
Yeah. And a huge role, right? I mean, business strategy and analytics. And tell me this, I'm going to get a little nosy here, but were you nervous? Like once you got this job, were you nervous about it? Was there any like fear that came along with taking this position?
To be honest, I don't think I had any. I would say it's, a little bit of nerves like any big move. I mean, mostly for moving halfway across the country. Not that I haven't moved a full way across the country from coast to coast already, but, I actually thrive in change. But in terms of the actual role, yes, it's absolutely a big role and a great role. It perfectly combined a lot of the things I had already experienced throughout my 10 years with Adidas. And that being said, having the analytics piece be sort of the, analytics and strategy being the like included in the title, that to me already was a sign that I was going to a place that really valued data and analytics the way a strategy group should. And I would say, that's something that not every company has figured out fully. But I do know that, the Brewers have been really advanced in that sense. And it's really been amazing to step into a team that values that. So I felt like this was just all opportunity. We're going to use data to make great business decisions and set up great business strategy.
All right. I love that. I love that there were nerves, but that's right. Like just beyond that, but there was no sort of self-doubt or any like fear. You stepped right into it. And it sounds like to me, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's almost like your previous job at Adidas kind of in that experience carried you into your new role and helped you make sure you felt comfortable. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And never to be underestimated, the power of just the team, the people. And, throughout my interview process, I just felt super comfortable, had really amazing conversations with the people at the Brewers organization along the way. So I also felt like I was going to be working with some great, great folks. So that also helps to build a certain level of comfort, stepping into something new.
That's fantastic. All right. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first thing that comes to your mind, 12 questions. What is your favorite sports moment?
I would have to say the three-peat, Bulls three-peat.
There we go. Okay. What is something people always get wrong about you?
That's a tough one. Oh man, you stumped me, Jahaan. Just on the second question, how easygoing I am.
So you're not.
You want more explanation?
100%.
So I don't want to use the word unapproachable, but people have said like that I seem unapproachable. They don't realize that once they get to know me, like I'm super easygoing.
What is the one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Sushi.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Neither.
What does that even mean? Like mid-afternoon person or?
Yeah, just middle of the day is my strongest part.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What job would you be absolutely horrible at doing?
Lifeguard. Because if I see a shark swimming out there, you're all on your own.
You're not going to be the hero. Okay.
That's so bad.
It's okay. I say that to we're supposed to go hiking this summer. And I said, if we see a bear, just so everyone knows, I am not going to be the hero. It's not going to be me. I can't handle that.
Human instinct after that.
It is. I'm just being honest. So everybody is prepared to kind of take over while I just break down in the corner.
Exactly. No one ever hired me as a lifeguard.
Good to know. Okay. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
Ooh, this is way harder than the rest of the interview, by the way.
That part we're keeping in. Is it food, jewelry, makeup?
Oh gosh, food. I was just going through all of the different foods that I'd have to choose.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Food for sure. Oh my God, I love food.
So maybe the answer is just food overall. You would just stockpile all the food.
Yeah, or it's got to be either food or wine.
Yeah, mine would be wine. What is your favorite app?
I mean, I don't want to say any of the social media because I almost feel like it's sucking my life away. I need to lay off the social media.
Speaking of boundaries, I've had to put boundaries up for those. It literally is sucking the life away.
Okay, you know what? I do have a favorite app right now. Of course, it's short-lived always, but it's my latest weather app. It's called What the Forecast. It's hilarious.
You're the second person who has said that.
Okay.
The first one I was shocked, and now I'm like, I guess this is a thing. Okay. Speaking of life sucking, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Instagram.
Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
My mom.
As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
Well, 100% I wanted to be playing in the WNBA, but with 6 figures worth of student loans, I had to change directions coming out of college.
Yes, maybe your next career move, not that you're thinking about it, but maybe that's a WNBA. Never know. That's how you get there. All right, finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
Limitless.
This has been a great conversation and funny. So thank you for making me laugh. How can people get if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
LinkedIn is probably good. I'm always on it, so easy.
All right, that's easy. We will link to it in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine, Jahaan.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.